Hi everyone, I'm Michelle and today I wanted to share with you 3 ways to become a better coffee taster. I believe that these 3 strategies really helped me become a Q grader. And a good analogy of what a Q grader is basically a sommelier in the wine industry, but Q graders are those kinds of professionals in the coffee industry. But today, I wanted to give you a foundation of tasting that I think will transfer over when you are tasting coffee. The first way that will help you become a better coffee taster is writing down all of your tasting experiences in a journal or even recording them on your phone. For me, whenever I tasted food or even any beverages that really left an impression on me, or if there's something about it that I wanted to remember, I would write it down. For example, the other day I was tasting or eating some red grapes, and some of the grapes actually reminded me of eating pomegranate. So I wrote those 2 foods down and kind of made a connection between the 2 so that when I'm actually tasting coffee, if I'm actually tasting red grapes, I would question myself if I was actually tasting pomegranate or if I was actually tasting both of them in the coffee. Or if I was eating, for example, a dessert and I found that 2 flavors really complemented each other, I would also write that down. I think it was a few months ago, I was eating cheesecake and there was lychee, raspberry in it, and I thought that all 3 of those flavors, so the combination of cream cheese, lychee, and raspberry, formed a really good base for the dessert. The key here is to consciously think about what you are tasting or even drinking. For me, it would trigger different memories in the past or different experiences, and I would borrow from those experiences to really figure out what I'm actually tasting. In the case of coffee tasting, those would really help me identify some flavors. For example, when I went to Japan, when I tasted muscat grapes, a lot of times I would actually taste basil, and I wasn't sure why, so I actually looked it up on ChatGPT, and muscat grapes and basil actually share very similar organic compounds, which is kind of why maybe I formed a connection between those 2 foods. Another example is I was eating at a restaurant and I was wondering why this dish tasted kind of like wasabi to me. So I actually asked the chef, why does this dish taste like wasabi when I don't even see any of it on it? And then the chef told me that the dish had horseradish oil. And so that's when I formed a connection between wasabi and horseradish. They have 2 similar flavors, not the same, but very similar. Now, in terms of what I actually write in my journal, I like to keep it very simple. I usually stick with flavors as well as mouthfeel. So for example, for mouthfeel, sometimes when I eat fruit, I notice that there's a similar feel when I actually eat kiwi, pear, and I actually have it here in my notes. Oh, I put dragon fruit, kiwi, and pear have similar textures in terms of mouthfeel. And then here I also wrote down pineapple, cinnamon, clove, and blueberry tea are complementary flavors, just for example's sake. Another way that my head works when I'm tasting in coffee is thinking of the 5 basic tastes. So that's sour, sweet, bitter, savory, or umami, and lastly, salty. So when I taste something in coffee and I'm tasting one of those basic tastes, it will usually lead me to some form of flavor. For example, if I'm tasting sweet and sour, it will probably bring me to some form of fresh fruit. For example, apples can be sweet and sour. Another example, say if I'm only tasting upfront sour in a coffee, it could lead me to some form of lemon, lime, or even some form of vinegar, because those tend to be just straight up sour. So by writing down your experiences and consciously thinking of it, You're creating a habit in your head of how you want to process flavors. Not only that, but it might actually add to your tasting vocabulary or descriptor dictionary. Um, and it just gives you more words to really explain what you are tasting in a coffee, in a dish, in a beverage such as a cocktail or even beer and wine. When you write something down, you're not only processing it in your head, but also reviewing it when you write it down or record it in your phone. The second way that you can become a better coffee taster, and is my favorite way as well, is to taste with others. When you taste with others, they will offer not only a different perspective of what they are tasting, but also how they taste. When I taste with others, other people may bring up notes that I don't think of at the top of my head. And what this does is kind of changes the way how I process flavors and doesn't always keep me in a habit of defaulting to flavors that I usually think of first, such as fruit. The reason why it's important to switch up the way you process flavors when you are tasting is because if not, you might create a bias of flavors that you usually fall back on or usually refer to. And what you want to do is not limit the way you express coffee, but expand your vocabulary. And that's why it's important to hear about what others think about a food, beverage, or coffee, and be open to different flavors and descriptors. Now, when you are also tasting with others, they are going to say different flavors and descriptors that you might not even have heard of. And because of that, one, that gives you a new word to add to your flavor dictionary, and two, you can actually go out of your way to buy that flavor and experience it. When I taste with others, I always try to remain open and curious of what others are tasting. I never think that I'm always right when I'm tasting coffee. I always try to seek out other perspectives to see that, if what I'm actually tasting aligns with other people or other people in the industry. This is kind of my way to check my bias and confirm that whether what I'm tasting is there in the coffee or is not in the coffee. And the last way that can help you become a coffee taster is to get involved in your coffee community, whether it's networking, whether it's volunteering, or you can sign up in some coffee classes or compete in your local or national competitions. When you go out to attend these events, there's usually some kind of tasting going on, and that's your opportunity to practice. Practice writing down your experiences in a journal or putting it into your notes on your phone, and also conversing with other people. This is also good practice to try to communicate what you are tasting and also try to understand why people are tasting certain flavors in the coffee and how do they come to that flavor. I think it's really important to use these opportunities to learn and grow and really get to know your own coffee palate as well. When I first started, it was a little intimidating. I didn't know a lot of people, but because I attended those events, because I volunteered, I was able to meet more people and expand my network. It allowed me to form connections both professionally and personally, and it really helped me grow and kind of find out what I wanted to do in coffee. The one thing that I think is important when you're going out there and joining those opportunities is to know that you're doing it to learn, maybe to learn that you like this part of the industry, and to learn that maybe you don't like this part of the industry. And so you can narrow it down of what you kind of want to focus on in the industry. For me, I found that I love competing, and I also love the sensory analysis, the sensory science of coffee. So that's kind of what I'm exploring currently in my career. And I hope that you will be able to find it through these opportunities that come up. If you really like these videos on me sharing my coffee journey, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I hope to bring you more coffee content, sharing more about the community and sharing about my own personal journey. Bye!